It was January 21st, 1986, and Detective Anthony Venditti was picked up by Detective Kathleen Burke, who was a fill-in for his regular partner Brian Ford, who was away on vacation. Burke picked Venditti up and drove him to 26 Federal Plaza in Manhattan, where the FBI had an office. They were both assigned to the Joint Organized Crime Task Force. Once in the building, they reviewed surveillance photos of the targets that they would be tailing. Both the FBI and the OC Task Force had been investigating Genovese member Federico Fritzi Giovanelli, who ran a major gambling operation for the West Side. Law enforcement's goal was to identify who was involved in the gambling business, as well as following the money trail. Besides surveillance, they had several wiretaps in place to help obtain information. Naturally, the FBI's prize target was Genovese boss Chin Gigante. At the time, Fritzi had recently been overheard on a phone tap referring to picking up a package. Street lingo, as well as law enforcement's interpretation, equates that to drugs. But since they had no clue what he was referring to, they intended to increase surveillance on him. They would tail Fritzi and see what, if anything, they could find out. The detectives were in plain clothes and had been using an undercover car, a 1977 Lincoln Town car, that Venditti felt the Genovese members identified. He even requested a different car, but his request was turned down by his superiors. By 5 p.m., both detectives left 26 Federal Plaza in the Lincoln and headed to Queens. They arrived at 343 Nicholas Avenue in the Ridgewood area, where Fritzi had a social club. After some time, they spotted Fritzi exiting the club, and he got into his BMW and drove away. But they didn't tail him. Instead, they drove back into the city and straight to 208 Sullivan Street, home to the Triangle Social Club that was Chin Gigante's headquarters. They assumed Fritzi was headed to the club, as he often did. However, there was no sign of him, but there were two guys standing outside the club, and one of the guys pointed to the Lincoln. So Venditti was right, their undercover car was made. Later that day, a wiretap picked up a call that Fritzi received, and the caller told him that Chin wanted to see him at 7 p.m. But Fritzi explained that he didn't think he could make it because one of his kids was sick and he needed to go speak with the doctor. Actually, this was code, which translated to someone in his crew was bad and he needed to go see Dom Cantorino, a captain in the family, possibly to get permission to clip the guy. He did in fact meet with Cantorino, but what they spoke about is unknown. Following that meeting, Fritzi and his associate, Steve Maltese, drove into the city to meet with Joey Ida on Thompson Street, which is a short walk from Chin's club. Joey Ida was a Genovese member and the brother of Jimmy Ida, the future consigliere of the family. Joey Ida gave Fritzi a pistol and a police scanner, items typically used when doing a piece of work, and most likely the package that Fritzi was overheard speaking about. Venditti and Burke spotted Fritzi back at his club in Ridgewood at around 8 p.m. But Venditti felt that Fritzi spotted them in the Lincoln, so they left. He needed to use a bathroom anyway, and Burke wanted a coffee, so they drove to the Castillo Diner on Myrtle Avenue, also in Ridgewood. According to Burke, she was driving, and as they pulled up to the diner, she looked in her rearview mirror and seen Fritzi's car behind them with the headlights off. By her account, she turned to Venditti and said, "Don't get out, Tony. He's following us. Let's lose him and go somewhere else." Nonetheless, Venditti got out and entered the diner. Burke said she then pulled away and drove around the block, and when she came back around, she noticed Fritzi's car was now parked across the street from the diner. The time was now about 8:25 p.m., and she claimed that she watched Fritzi and two guys approach the diner just as Venditti was walking out. She jumped out of the Lincoln and yelled out, "Tony, watch out," and then "Police, freeze." She said one of the three guys told her, "You, get over there too." She said she seen Fritzi with a gun. What took place in the next couple of seconds was shots being fired. Who shot first depends on what you believe. But Burke gets hit once in the chest, and according to her, before going down, she managed to squeeze off 5 rounds. Venditti was hit 2 times in the face and twice more in the back. They were both subsequently taken to Wyckoff Heights Hospital in Ridgewood, but Venditti didn't make it, and Burke was treated for a gunshot wound to the chest. Initially, while still at the hospital, Burke only named Fritzi as being involved in the diner incident. She would later change her statement and include Maltese and Carmine Gualtieri, another associate of Fritzi's. In addition, she claimed that while shot and on the ground, Fritzi stood over her and fired a shot at her head, but missed. There was no evidence at the crime scene of a bullet hitting the pavement. Incidentally, those who knew Venditti said not only was it out of character, but highly unlikely that he would have left his partner knowing a mobster was parked behind them. Fritzi was arrested not far from the scene. A witness, Frank Simone, an unemployed chef, flagged down a cop car and pointed him out. Maltese and Gualtieri were able to get away, but would be arrested 2 days later. Simone told the police that he witnessed Fritzi on the diner stairs with brass knuckles, and he heard him say, "What are we going to do with this fucking guy?" As Venditti came out of the diner, he told Fritzi, "What are you going to do with that?" Fritzi cursed him, and then Simone heard a gunshot and dove behind a dumpster, but peeked out just in time to see Gualtieri shoot Venditti twice in the head. Simone testified during the first trial, which ended in a hung jury in 1987. He also appeared at a second trial in 1988 and recanted his earlier statements. That trial also ended in a hung jury. He would become a defense witness by the third trial, where there was also no convictions, and those were state cases. Fritzi testified at one of the trials, of course with permission, and claimed that he was being held up at the diner by 2 men as Venditti exited the diner, at which point Burke showed up and began firing. He said he fled, and apparently the robbers shot Venditti and Burke. Jurors would make statements that Detective Burke was a liar and that her testimony had more holes than Swiss cheese. They also felt it was all a police cover-up. Even Venditti's widow stated the following: "We don't believe Kathy Burke told the complete truth." In 1989, Rudolph Giuliani, who was the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District at the time, took Fritzi, Maltese, and Gualtieri to trial on a RICO case that included Venditti's murder. That trial ended in convictions and sentences of 20 years. But the murder charges were eventually overturned on appeal. Giuliani would say part of the problem had to do with the way the first state trial was handled, and added, "That can't be undone. I took the case into federal court and put my best people on it." Ultimately, Fritzi wound up serving 10 years, Maltese 7 years, and Gualtieri served 5 years. Let me remind everyone to like this video, as well as the super thanks icon put there for anyone who'd like to show appreciation for videos like this. First and foremost, the killing of a member of law enforcement definitely brought the Genovese family a lot of unwanted heat. I believe Fritzi was given a pass and not killed because he was well liked, but over and above that, he was kicking up millions of dollars from the gambling business. As far as Venditti's murder, in my opinion, some of the bullets that hit him came from Detective Burke's gun. I think she panicked. As the head of the Organized Crime Task Force, Edward McDonald, put it, "It was extraordinary when someone alleged to be an organized crime figure shoots a law enforcement officer. Generally, that's not how these people operate."